Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over a build guide for the new Bone Spirit Rathma build. So it actually has gotten a rework, and I want to go ahead and show you guys this new build because before we would use Army of the Dead for our main source of damage. Now it is all about Bone Spirit. We actually don't even use Army of the Dead in our entire bar. Right now it is capable of doing a 140 on the PTR. Keep in mind everything is subject to change because this is going into season 23, but right now we are still in the PTR phase. Now on the Diablo 3 planner, which I will also link down below, we won't be able to see the new changes of the Rathma set, so I will have to go ahead and show you guys via the screenshots in game. So as far as the newer changes to the updates, because on season 23's PTR, when they first introduced the new Rathma build, it was actually a lot better, and we actually didn't even need Bone Spirit at all. But now we are not going to be actually using Army of the Dead at all. So basically we've reversed which skill we actually utilize. But there is also a few changes, and I want to go over that. So first off, what is the new changes with the Bones of Rathma? With the 2-piece bonus, our minions reduce the cooldown of Army of the Dead by 0.25 seconds each time they deal damage. Your skeletal warriors spawn faster, and your revived minions no longer expire. What it comes down to is that has been changed. It used to be a 1 second cooldown, and now it is 0.25, so huge nerf with that. And then with the 4-piece bonus, our minions no longer take damage, and we gain 1% damage reduction for 15 seconds each time one of our minions deals damage, so that's 75 damage reduction right there. And then with the 6-piece bonus, each active minion increases the damage of Army of the Dead and Bone Spirit by 500% up to 8,500. The change with that, it used to be 1,000 and it had no cap at all, which was awesome. Unfortunately, it no longer does that, and it is heavily nerfed. Now, in addition with that change, which is overall, I would say that's a nerf to the build, there is also a change with the Bonds of Selena. This is the new bracers that are in the game. Again, these won't actually be on the Diablo 3 planner as well, but this is a completely new item. What it does is it grants us 400% increased damage with Bone Spirit. The rest of the stats don't matter in terms of what it does, but it is also supposed to give you an additional 2% increased damage for 10 seconds each time Army of the Dead hits an enemy, so that's 500 stacks. So you're supposed to get a huge multiplier that we simply just don't even use because you can't keep up the Army of the Dead and consistently get that damage out, so it's just better to just utilize other mechanics. So now that we have some of those items that won't show up in the D3 planner out of the way, let me go ahead and go over the build and show you guys what you're kind of looking for on the gear. So first off, I do want to go over the playstyle as well as the skills. Now that we kind of understand the mechanics of what we are looking for, I want to go over how the build works. So remember, we get that cooldown with the command skeletons continuously attacking a target, any of our minions really. So we want to go ahead and just keep this up at all times. If you can unlock some of the skills, that's great, but you basically have to spam command skeletons pretty much the entire time. Otherwise, you won't be able to get the cooldowns you need to spam Bone Spirit, because remember, that's your damage. Next up, Bone Spirit, we're going to be running the Cold Rune. Oh, speaking of the rune, we're running Dark Mending just for extra survivability. There is one called Frenzy that can technically increase the attack speed, which if you are able to min-max and able to keep it up and you don't die, that could be something that some people may want to do, but for the most part, survivability is a huge issue with this build. But anyways, Bone Spirit, this thing hits for a massive amount of damage, but on top of that, with a Cold Rune, the damage is increased by 15% for each enemy that Bone Spirit passes through while seeking its target. It kind of just goes where it wants to. There's probably some way to kind of try to target certain things, but I would say it kind of has a mind of its own, but you can get massive amounts of damage. It almost reminds me of like the Hungering Arrow when it would pierce so many targets, because currently this has no cap, which is really awesome. But yeah, the Cold Rune for Bone Spirit. And then we have Blood Rush Molting. This is a way for us to generate not only a corpse, which we'll be using our Devour Aura on, but it also reduces your health, which is different than taking damage. The reason why you want that is because it will basically give you extra cooldown reduction with one of our passives. And then we have Revived Personal Army, so just some extra damage reduction, so you'll have more minions out. More minions means that you will also be not only taking less damage, but it helps with your cooldown of the Rathma set. But in addition to that, I do want to mention that when you have the Land of the Dead, you can instantly activate Revive ASAP as soon as you go into the rift. That's actually a really important thing. You'll see me do it in the gameplay over here. We're just doing speed 75s, which would be the same as the T16s. But basically, this will keep you up, and it will also have you have extra cooldown reduction, because it's a really important thing for this build. You want cooldown on everything because you want to be activating Land of the Dead. Now, previously we had another passive that grants us immunity. That thing has been completely nerfed. If you guys really want to know what it was the Rathma shield. This got a huge nerf, and it can only be procced once every like 60 seconds. So pretty much it's no longer worth running. You used to be able to keep it up the whole time and you would be able to take 0 damage. That has been changed. Now, if you want to be immune to damage, what you got to do is use the Land of the Dead. And so with the Invigoration rune, it makes it so your skills do not cost essence while Land of the Dead is active. What that means is when you use the Captain Crimson 2-piece bonus with the Royal Ring of Grandeur, which will have the 3-piece set, the damage dealt is increased by your percentage of cooldown reduction, and also damage taken is reduced by your percentage of cost reduction. If our cost is 0, because everything's 0, we simply don't take damage. That's going to be really good for our amulet, which is Scorch's Necklace, because we won't be taking any damage, therefore we won't be reducing the stacks that we have with the bonus damage. So that's kind of how it works. Now with Devour, Voracious over here, we reduce the all of the essence cost by 2% for each corpse consumed for 5 seconds. So you want to be spamming this the whole time. It doesn't cost anything. Again, if you have ability to numlock, go ahead and do that. So pretty much how the build works, you spam Command Skeletons and Devour and Bone Spirit. So you're going to be spamming all of these skills while attempting to cast Blood Rush on average at least 4 times to activate Blood is Power, to be a little bit more consistent. Like ideally, the reason why is usually you'll take enough damage, and ideally it would be technically using it 20 times, but at least like 4 times is about on average what you will be able to start proccing your Blood is Power. Just try to use this as much as you can, is what I'm really trying to say. But keep in mind with Obsidian Ring Zodiac, you definitely want to get the extra cooldown of your Land of the Dead versus trying to get the cooldown on this, because remember, it's the rune cooldown on one of your skills, not all of them. So again, on average, I would say that's usually what people try to go for. That also is tied to your Bone Spirit, so on average, that's kind of what you want to try to do. Just activate it a few different times, is what I'm trying to say. But next up, for our passive, we're running Starration, so that just extra damage for Bone Spirit when they travel a longer distance, which is going to be a part of another thing inside of our Kanai's Cube. We have Final Service, so we have a Cheat Death over here, and then Overwhelming Essence, because we're running the Shadow Hook. That's going to grant us extra damage, and then Blood is Power, so this grants you an extra 20% cooldown, but you have to lose 100% of your life. Again, the idea is to actually either use Blood Rush or just take damage. There is like a brief moment in between where Land of the Dead is not up, and that's where you're going to be taking a lot of your damage. Unfortunately, that also reduces the damage you deal because of the Scorch's Necklace mechanic. And then for our cube, we're running Relentless Shadow Hook. This is for more damage, for more essence. So ideally, you want to try to get essence on your Scythe over here. This is the Jaseth's build, so you're going to run Jaseth pretty much going forward. I think every Necro build would be running this because there's a massive amount of extra damage here. But yeah, Jaseth's you want on the secondary to get that maximum essence to get that extra damage. So the more essence you will have more damage. It also technically helps out with Bone Spikes, but it's not in this build. Then the Defiler Pants over here makes it so our Bone Spirit damage is going to be increased by 500% for every second it is active. There is a cap to this. It's basically 5 seconds, but pretty much you're not going to be off-screening things super crazy, like one-shotting Rift Guardians. You'll see in the gameplay, we definitely one-shot Rift Guardians, but this is like not a GR 150, but it does have a cap now, so keep that in mind as well. It's really only relevant for group play to mention it. But next up, Royal Ring of Grandeur. This is obviously going to be used for the Captain's build, since we're going to be running 2 sets. We're running Captain's and the Rathma set. And then that's going to round off the stuff that is in the passives and the skills. Now, in terms of the pieces of gear, what we do want to get that would be different than other builds, instead of getting like Bone Spirit damage on like a helm and the boots, it actually rolls on the chest piece as well as the shoulder pieces. But you want to get as much cooldown as possible. This build heavily relies on cooldown, and if you do not have the ability to upkeep your Land of the Dead up, you will definitely melt very, very fast. That also will help out with your Bone Spirit because it runs off of charges. So yeah, cooldown is super, super important for this build. Now in terms of the gems, we are running the Zystone of Vengeance, so it's more damage when things are farther away. Even though you'll see me time and time again, I will just go up to things point blank. It's because as Bone Spirit passes through multiple things, it starts increasing in damage, and you can hit something super far off the screen. You could deal a massive amount of extra damage because remember, every time it passes through a target, it's more damage with the cold rune. But yeah, that's Zystone, and then we have the Go-Go Swiftness, so more cooldown and more attack speed, and it has a defensive mechanic where you're also able to get extra chance to dodge. And then we have Bigger the Trap, one of the best gems in the game. And then for the gems in our pieces of gear, we actually can run a lot of different things. If you want to run rubies or emeralds, feel free to go and do so, but if you want more damage, go ahead and run the topazes. For the helm, cooldown reduction, you want that diamond. But in terms of the pieces of gear, again, you just want to get crit chance, crit hit damage, and area damage if you can. But the main important thing, cooldown reduction on every single piece of gear, minus like the amulet over here, because you want that cold roll on it. If you have int, crit hit, chance, crit hit damage, that's totally fine, especially if you're just starting out on season 23. That's totally okay. But eventually, once you get high enough in the Paragon department, you definitely want that extra cold instead of intelligence. But nothing too particular on the helmet other than getting that crit hit chance. Again, you definitely want to have that Bone Spirit damage as well as that cooldown reduction. Cooldown reduction over the Bone Spirit damage before anything, yeah, you want cooldown. Then for the gloves, crit chance, crit damage, and then if you can get area damage instead of like int, if you're like super far in the game, sure, go ahead and do that as well. For the chest piece, the only important thing is to get that Bone Spirit damage. And then the bracers, you do want to have that cold damage. Again, you will run the new bracers that are over here. They're the Selenas. These are a completely new item, but yeah, they're just not available in the Diablo planner here. But yeah, you definitely want to have that cold damage as well as that crit chance, and that's the only thing important there. The belt, there's nothing too important to matter. Just if you get main stat, vitality, life, armor, you'll be good to go. And then important thing on Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac is to try to get one with that 8% cooldown reduction. You don't need resource cost reduction, so that's what you roll off, because Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac will always roll with attack speed, crit hit chance, and then it's going to have cooldown and then reduce resource cost, which is the one that you want to roll off. And then with the pants, nothing too special with that. And then with the Crispin Sentence, which is our other ring, we're going to go for the cooldown reduction on it if we can. That's, again, the most important stat. The rest of the things don't matter that much on it. And then for the weapon, as well as our offhand, we're going to be running the Jeseth's two-piece, and we want to have that cooldown reduction. The rest of the stats don't matter too much, but if you can't get attack speed and damage, that's cool too. And then nothing important on the boots, as you can't roll like Bone Spirit damage on the boots, so don't worry about that. And then for the shield over here, ideally you want to have one that has higher block, but it doesn't really matter too much. Ideally you want that cooldown reduction and that crit hit chance. Those are the most important things, but if you can also get that increased damage against elites, that's okay as well. And that's pretty much going to round off the build for like the main meta one right now that people are running. I try to see if there's any other things that we can really change up. There's only one real variation. It's a very small one that I've seen. So I've been running around with the Messerschmitts, and that really helps out. If you don't have the cooldown reduction, this is something I could recommend if you're just doing like T16 speeds, or like maybe up to like GR 100s, you could probably get away with Messerschmitts. It's going to reduce your damage a little bit, but it also technically has more consistent results, as it will be able to upkeep your Land of the Dead. And how it works is every time you kill an enemy, it reduces the cooldown on one of your skills, so that really helps out upkeep your Land of the Dead. But again, since you're not running the Shadow Hook, you will be dealing less damage, but it gives you more survivability because it's more uptime on your Land of the Dead, which when you have this activated with the Crimson set, you won't be taking any damage. You're basically immune. But that's the only real difference that I could see being like a viable option. But if you're looking to push, Shadow Hook is going to give you the better options. But on top of that, as far as the passives go, you can run the Bone Prison, because this does trap them in there, which can help out with Crispin, so you don't have to like proc the freeze with the Bone Spirit, because this one that seeks out an enemy with a cold rune, it does, it seeks the enemy and the damage turns to cold. So there's a little bit of play with that, but overall there's not really too many variations that I would consider to be like very viable as another option. But that's going to go ahead and wrap up the build. If there's any questions that you guys have or comments, let me know down below in the comment section below. But there is still one more build that we do have to cover that did get changed with the most recent patch, and it's actually going to be a buff to the Bola build for the God Demon Hunter, but we'll cover that very soon. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like on it, and if you are new here and do want to see more Diablo content in the future, hit subscribe, turn the bell, and you'll definitely see more very soon. But take care, and I'll catch you on the next video. I'm out. Peace.